Welcome back to ASEAN Challenge now. Into ASEAN interview this week, we talk about some important developments concerning the case of Myanmar and its situation revolving around journalist freedom and the jailing of the two Reuters journalists.
ใช่แล้วค่ะกลับเข้าสู่รายการ ASEAN Challenge นะคะในช่วงนี้ ASEAN Interview ค่ะเราจะไปดูสถานการณ์ที่ประเทศเมียนมากันบ้างนะคะซึ่งตอนนี้นะคะสถานการณ์ของเขาเนี่ยถือว่าเป็นประชาธิปไตยแต่ว่าอยู่ในภาวะที่หยุดชะงักอยู่นะคะเพราะว่าเหตุการณ์ต่างๆที่เกิดขึ้นในประเทศเอาเป็นว่าจะเป็นอย่างไรกันบ้างไปติดตามกันค่ะ
Myanmar's democratic transition has ground to a standstill as authorities seek to silence critics while allowing hate speech, particularly against Muslim Rohingya. This comes from the head of a UN fact-finding human rights mission.
Democracy requires a government that accepts scrutiny. It depends on leadership that actively combats hate speech and harmful misinformation. It requires a legal framework that guarantees these rights for all without discrimination. In this regard, the democratic transition in Myanmar had barely begun, and now it has come to a standstill. Repressive laws are being used to silence those that seek to scrutinize. We have verified instances of reprisals against individuals for sharing information with the United Nations. Peaceful protests are blocked, sometimes violently, as occurred in the village of Mrauk-U. While voices critical of the government are muted by threats and arrest, hate speech is thriving, particularly against the Rohingya. Patience will not help Myanmar's democratization. It will only help those that seek to derail it, as it has for over 70 years.
The one-sided report of the FFN has only served to strengthen the government's concerns. Not only is this report detrimental to social cohesion in Rakhine State, it also undermines the government's effort to bring peace, national reconciliation, and development to the entire nation.
Myanmar's ambassador, Cha Mo-tun, took to the floor at the Geneva Forum to reject as one-sided the panel's findings contained in a report issued on August 27th and published more fully earlier in the month. That report said Myanmar's military carried out mass killings and gang rapes of Rohingya with genocidal intent and called for Commander-in-Chief Min Aung Hlaing and 5 generals to be prosecuted for the gravest crimes under international law. Myanmar's government dismissed that summary at the time and said the international community was making false allegations. The military did not comment, and Reuters was unable to contact the generals named in the report. The Myanmar people deserve a country where journalists are free to do their job and where all citizens have the same rights. This comes from the European Union's foreign policy chief. Federica Mogherini was speaking in the European Parliament as the Union's lawmakers were about to pass a resolution on the situation in Myanmar.
People of Myanmar have asked to turn the page, to go towards a democratic system and country, and they deserve better than this. They deserve a country where journalists are free to do their job and to keep the state institutions accountable for their actions. And they deserve a country where all citizens, all of them, have the same rights, whatever their faith or their background.
Mogherini said, "We've also made clear to the Myanmar authorities that our trade preferences with Myanmar are linked to clear conditions on human rights and democracy, and that to preserve our current trade agreements, we need to see decisive action to improve the situation. Finally, we're working closely with the civilian government of Myanmar to address the root causes of conflict in accordance with the Annan report." Now in the resolution, EU lawmakers call for the dropping of charges and the immediate and unconditional release of Reuters journalists Walon and Jia So-u, who were sentenced to 7 years in prison for breaking the Official Secrets Act. The 2 reporters who had pleaded not guilty were investigating the killing of 10 villagers from the Muslim Rohingya minority by the Myanmar security forces at the time of their arrest. The military later acknowledged the killings and said it punished several soldiers.
And that was the situation involved in the ASEAN interview this week. We'll wrap up the program and see you next week. As for now, สวัสดีค่ะ
สวัสดีค่ะ